When I first heard that Ethan Price had been in a car accident, I was sitting in the hospital with my palms soaked in sweat, listening to the doctor explain. Your constant nausea and vomiting aren't from a stomach problem. It's morning sickness. You've already been pregnant for more than 3 months. Why are you only coming in for a checkup now? Where's your partner? Why didn't he come with you? Are you two divorced? The flood of questions made my vision blur. Covering my mouth, I retched again, dry and bitter. It took me a long while to calm down in the restroom. Forcing myself to stand, I bit my lip and reminded the doctor, I'm an alpha, an S-rank alpha. The doctor adjusted his glasses and calmly replied that he hadn't misdiagnosed me. So what if you're S-rank? If you do that kind of thing often enough, an alpha can get pregnant too. Don't tell me it's because you and your partner are very active. My gaze darted away, guilt burning in my chest. I swallowed hard. Active? That was putting it lightly. For the past 3 years, Ethan had all but treated it like a punishment, day and night, forcing me down with that cold face of his, fulfilling his sponsor role with ruthless persistence. The reproductive cavity that was supposed to have atrophied, he nearly carved it open again. The books always said the chance of an alpha conceiving was next to nothing, so I never took it seriously. No pills, no precautions. And now, here I was, lucky winner of the impossible. I thanked the doctor numbly, my mind blank, completely at a loss for what to do next. I hesitated, phone in hand, wondering if I should call Ethan. But before I could, his number flashed on my screen. His younger brother's panicked voice rang out, Sis-in-law, hurry, get to the inpatient department at the city hospital. Brother Ethan, he's been in a car accident, and he's lost his memory. The maternity ward wasn't far from the inpatient wing. By the time I arrived, Gabriel Price wasn't the only one waiting outside. Ethan's closest friend, Xavier Young, stood by the door with a grim look on his face. He stepped forward and stopped me before I could go in. Julian, listen, before you walk in, you'd better prepare yourself. His tone was low, serious. I felt my stomach knot. Prepare myself for what? Xavier exhaled heavily. Ethan hit his head and his leg. Right now, he's basically a limping man with a concussion. But the worst part is, he's lost his memory. Completely. It seems like he's forgotten everyone, probably including you. A chill spread through me, though I forced myself to nod. I understand. I didn't care about the rest. I just wanted to see him, to know he was alive. Without another word, I stepped forward. And then, crash! The shattering of glass split the hallway, followed by a furious roar from inside the room. Divorce! I demand a divorce right now. My chest tightened. That voice, it was Ethan's. I refused to believe this, he shouted again, his voice breaking with anger. Dad, how the hell could I be married to a man, to my worst enemy, to an alpha, of all people? His words cut like knives, each one sharp and deliberate. My feet froze just outside the door. Tell me the truth. Ethan's voice was raw, cracking with disbelief. Did our family go bankrupt? Is that it? Did you sell off your only son to pay some damn debt? Answer me. Inside, I heard Mr. Price, his father, groaning like he'd aged 10 years in a single day. For God's sake, bankrupt? Don't be ridiculous. His frustration was plain, his voice weary. Do you think I liked your spouse? Do you think your mother and I wanted this marriage? We never supported it. There was a heavy pause, then his father's voice dropped, sharp with bitterness. 3 years ago, it was you who insisted on marrying him. You were so desperate for it, I broke your damn leg to stop you. You ended up hospitalized, in this very room. I froze in place. Ethan broke his leg just to marry me? He had never once mentioned it. All I remembered was how, before we went abroad to register our marriage, he vanished for 3 full months. And when he finally showed up, his reason was simple, detached. His parents liked me. They wanted me as their son-in-law. He had always looked unwilling, forced, resentful. But now, then it must be because that damn alpha has something on me. Ethan snapped, his voice hoarse and raw with frustration. His bandaged head gleamed under the harsh hospital light as he pressed his palm against it. Dad, hurry. Pay him off. No matter how much it costs, I have to divorce him. He growled, his voice shaking with disgust. Every time I smell another alpha's pheromones, I want to throw up. And you've just let me suffer like this for 3 years without lifting a finger. Mr. Price gave a sharp, bitter laugh. Suffer? Suffer? Every time I came to see you, you were practically glued to him. A dignified alpha, dripping with another man's scent from head to toe. Don't talk to me about suffering. You've been nothing but pathetic. Ethan grabbed his head with both hands, completely unraveling. What kind of blackmail could make me such an idiot, such a coward? His voice cracked. No matter what it takes, I'll end this marriage. I'd rather die than spend my life shackled to my worst enemy, an alpha no less. It makes me sick. I stood there, frozen, my fingers clenched around the ultrasound report until the paper crumpled in my sweaty palm. My heart felt like a bottle of spices knocked over, bitter, sour, salty, impossible to sort out. It seemed this so-called arrangement between us had truly reached its end. And the child, whose existence I had just confirmed today. Well, I knew what I had to do. I rubbed at the corner of my eyes, hot with unshed tears, and crushed the report into a tight ball. Without hesitation, I tossed it into the trash. Then, drawing a deep breath, I turned toward the obstetrics wing, toward the abortion clinic. But just as I took a step, something yanked hard around my ankle. Startled, I glanced down. Ethan had crawled across the floor. His hand clamped desperately around me, his face, bruised and pale beneath the bandages, twisted into something I had never seen before. Embarrassed, shy, almost pleading. He rubbed his nose awkwardly and gave me a crooked smile. Julian, you came? You're the only one I remember right now. His voice softened, almost boyish. They told me my family went bankrupt. So how about it? Want to take your worst enemy in as your live-in husband? Keep me around just to humiliate me? I blinked at him, stunned. Mr. Price. What the? Storming forward, Ethan's father didn't hesitate. Smack! A sharp slap landed across Ethan's face, the sound echoing through the hospital room. You ungrateful brat, he roared. Our family's still on the damn rich list, and you dare curse your old man like that? Ethan, with his injured leg, couldn't even get up to fight back. All he could do was cling desperately to me, both arms wrapped around my leg, refusing to let go. Julian Reed, he pleaded, eyes wide, you're the only one I remember. You're not allowed to leave me. Smack! Another slap from Mr. Price. His voice cracked with fury. You little bastard, you forget your own father, but you remember your enemy? Truly, what a filial son I've raised. Dad, please, stop. It's not his fault. This is on me. Afraid that Ethan would end up brain damaged if this kept going, I quickly stepped in front of him, shielding him from his father's blows. But Ethan, who was already acting brainless, stared at me in confusion. Julian, why did you just call him Dad? What's your relationship with him? Before I could answer, his voice cracked into a shrill panic, the words spilling out fast and desperate. Dad, tell me right now he isn't my long-lost older brother. Say it! Hurry up and say it! The room fell silent for half a heartbeat. And then... Smack! Ethan got his third slap of the day. But this time, it wasn't his father's hand. It was mine, because honestly, he was driving me insane. Mr. Price soon left the hospital room, dragging the others with him. The moment the door shut, silence fell. Ethan, who had been loud and furious just minutes ago, suddenly dropped his head and went quiet. I stayed behind, suppressing the nausea curling in my stomach as I bent down to sweep the shards of broken glass off the floor. Only when the space was clean did I finally sit beside his bed. You all right? I asked softly. Given how loudly he'd just been cursing, I doubted anything serious was wrong. But when I leaned closer, I froze. Ethan Price was crying, actual tears. Small, bright drops sliding down his face like fallen pearls. In 3 years at his side, I'd never seen this. He'd always been cold, detached. The only time emotions crossing his face was when he held me down at night with that merciless scowl. But this was the first time I saw him unravel. He clutched my hand so tightly it hurt, his voice breaking as he sobbed. Julian Reed, I know I was forced to marry an alpha. I know I haven't divorced yet. I know I'm filthy, ruined. But right now, you're the only one I remember. His tears shook as he went on. The only memory I have left is... when you pinned me to the ground at 16 and beat me bloody. You punched me so hard my nose wouldn't stop bleeding. I groaned and covered my ears. Not that memory, of all things. Back when my family was still powerful, Ethan and I had been mortal enemies. We fought almost every day, rolling across the schoolyard like feral dogs. And truth be told, he was usually the one eating dirt, which was probably why later, when fate turned and he had his chance to get even, Ethan nearly destroyed me in bed, obsessive, relentless, night after night. I snapped back from the memory, grabbed a tissue, and wiped his tears away. Ethan, what are you trying to say by bringing this up? Suddenly his posture straightened. His voice, though still hoarse, grew determined. You were top of the class in high school. I bet you're richer than my family now, aren't you? Since you broke me back then, you should take responsibility. Marry me. Take me in so I don't have to keep getting hit by my dad. I'll be your live-in husband." I let out a long sigh. "My family went bankrupt a long time ago, Ethan." My gaze dropped to the crumpled ultrasound report in my hand. "And as for that alpha you claim forced you, the one who disgusts you so much you can't stand their scent, that's me. I'm your spouse." Silence followed, heavy, sharp, like a knife dangling in the air between us. Ethan Price's mind completely shut down. In his memory, I was still 16, the year we despised each other the most. Back then, I had just differentiated into an S-class alpha. Every time he caught a whiff of my pheromones, he would run to the bathroom and throw up for half an hour. It pissed me off so much that the moment I saw him, I wanted to punch him. And now, out of nowhere, I was telling him that we were married. Of course it sounded absurd. I patted his shoulder gently, meaning to give him a moment to calm down. But his shoulder jerked violently. Then he suddenly burst into manic laughter, tilting his head back as tears streamed down his face. "Julian Reed," he choked between laughs. "Are you trying to trick an idiot? You, so arrogant, so proud. An alpha like you would marry me? Call me your husband? You think I'd believe such a cheap, pathetic lie? You've hated me all your life. You don't want to marry someone like me. You just don't want to take responsibility." I rubbed my temples, sighing. Honestly, from the outside, it did sound ridiculous. An S-class alpha willingly lowering himself, agreeing to stand beside someone he once loathed? No one would buy it. 3 years ago, when my family went bankrupt, I didn't ask anyone for help. I walked into the entertainment industry on my own. The industry was fast money, yes, but it was a pit of snakes. I had no backing, no protection. Within half a year, I'd already been drugged 3 times. 5 times, someone had switched out my hotel room cards to set me up. My self-control was strong, and somehow every time I managed to escape. But on the 6th time, I wasn't so lucky. My own company swapped out my suppressants for an aphrodisiac, then locked me, right in the middle of my susceptibility period, inside the top-floor suite. That night, I thought I was finished. But the one who walked into that presidential suite was Ethan Price. When Ethan Price first took over his family's company, someone thought it would be entertaining to deliver his old rival, me, straight into his room, like some toy to be played with. But Ethan didn't take the bait. He didn't humiliate me, didn't so much as sneer. Instead, with a face dark enough to make the air freeze, he gathered up my half-dressed, trembling body and carried me out of that room. Straight to the hospital. And afterward, he didn't let it end there. Ethan bought out the company I was signed under, personally dealt with the boss who'd been trying, time and time again, to shove me into that world of exploitation. Of course, people around us misread his intentions. My agent, convinced Ethan must secretly like me, shoved me into Ethan's bed again when Ethan himself was vulnerable, lost in the haze of his susceptibility period. That night, Ethan kissed me. I was fully conscious. I could have pushed him away, but I didn't. I closed my eyes and let it happen. From that night on, Ethan became my patron. He poured resources into me, handed me connections, lifted me from a nameless, washed-out extra to a film emperor. He even propped up the new company my father had started after our bankruptcy, and along the way, he married me. He said his parents were pressuring him to settle down, and that I, of all people, was exactly their idea of a suitable spouse. 3 villas, he said. 3 villas in exchange for 1 marriage certificate. I still remember his expression on the day we signed those papers abroad, reluctant, disgusted, like he was swallowing poison. That image has burned into me ever since. Now, thinking about how he once broke his leg just to marry me, I forced myself to hold back my bitterness and asked quietly, "Then what will it take, Ethan, for you to believe in us? In this marriage? The certificate's still overseas, isn't it? You left it there because you couldn't stand to even look at it." Ethan tilted his chin up, childish and shameless. "Kiss me. With tongue. Do that, and I'll believe." I blinked at him. "You're sure? You do realize I'm a man, your so-called rival, an alpha. Disgusting, remember?" "Julian Reed," Ethan snapped, puffing up like a spoiled kid, then actually puckered his lips in the most ridiculous way. "If you're too scared to kiss me, just admit it. Don't come up with excuses." I'd had enough. With a sigh, I pressed a hand to the back of his head and kissed him, just to shut him up. And yes, he had definitely lost his memory. His kissing was atrocious, all clumsy and uncoordinated, his tongue fumbling like he'd forgotten how it even worked. The sharp scent of disinfectant in the hospital air was suddenly mixed with something else, something that made my stomach churn violently. I shoved him away and bolted to the bathroom, gagging. Of course, Ethan wasn't about to leave it there. He dragged himself across the floor, his legs still injured, eyes red-rimmed and brimming with tears. "Julian," he accused, voice cracking. "You were lying to me. You kissed me and then ran off to vomit. You're disgusted by me. If we'd really been together for 3 years, there's no way I wouldn't have already had you wrapped around my finger by now." The sheer idiocy of it all made my vision darken. I stood, grabbed him by the collar, and gave him the beating he so richly deserved, before dragging him off to get a CT scan. Unfortunately, the CT scan showed nothing. Perfectly normal. With no medical explanation for Ethan's sudden regression, his father had no choice but to temporarily take control of the company while Ethan stayed in the hospital to recover. And me? I was the lucky one left to take care of him. I took half a month's leave, partly to watch over him, partly because, truth be told, I needed a break myself. Morning sickness had been getting worse. Much worse. But Ethan's mind was still stuck at 16. He was like a child, completely incapable of holding a rational conversation about our situation, least of all the baby. Instead, every day he clung to me with that idiotic grin, asking over and over, "Julian, are we really married? You're not lying to me, right? Come on, kiss me. Just once." His kissing skills were abysmal, truly awful. I didn't want his lips anywhere near mine. But then again, $5 million still landed neatly in my account every month. And when someone pays that much to be disgusting, you endure. So there I was again, pinned down by him, my face smeared with his sloppy kisses, my soul long since departed my body. If it weren't for his handsome face, I swear I would have knocked him out cold. 30 minutes later, he was still at it. I tried to keep my cool, biting back irritation. "All right, Ethan, that's enough. Time's up. Get off." But when I pushed at his chest, my hand met burning heat. He held me down, eyes wide, desperate, almost teary. "Julian, it hurts. Why does it hurt so bad today? And it's so hot. I need you to do something, please." My body went rigid. No way. Not now. I'd finally been enjoying a short reprieve thanks to his memory loss. But his susceptibility period? Already? That quickly? Absolutely not. I patted his head firmly and reached for the drawer to grab an inhibitor. But then, crack! A box of condoms tumbled out onto the floor. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The air was suddenly heavy, saturated with alpha pheromones, thick enough to choke on. Ethan, already hard as steel, flushed crimson in an instant. A chill ran down my spine. I froze, hand hovering uselessly in the air. "No, we can't. Not now. I'm all ready." But the rest of my words were swallowed, smothered by his desperate fevered kiss. On the afternoon of the third day, I was jolted awake by the sound of someone crying. My entire body still felt like it was falling apart, every bone aching as if I'd been broken and put back together wrong. Forcing myself upright, I dragged my heavy legs toward the corner of the room. There, curled up like a wounded animal, was Ethan Price, his shoulders trembling as he tried to stifle his sobs. "What are you crying for?" My voice came out hoarse, half annoyed, half exhausted. Ethan lifted his face. His eyes were red, his expression pitiful. For someone who had endured everything thrown at him, he looked strangely fragile now. "It was my first time," he whispered, choking on the words. "Because of my heat, it just happened. In some rundown hospital room, with no romance, no meaning, just gone like that." His voice cracked, and he buried his face in his knees. "Why did it have to be like this?" I rolled my eyes. Honestly, he made it sound as if the world had ended. But the truth was, Ethan hadn't shown any real signs of damage from the ordeal. If anything, he was still himself, stubborn, dramatic, and a little ridiculous. The doctor later suggested I take him back to my place for recovery. Familiar surroundings, he said, might help spark Ethan's memory. After thinking it over, I agreed. My villa was perched on the hillside south of the city, a quiet retreat surrounded by trees and the low hum of cicadas. The moment we stepped inside, I could see Ethan searching, his gaze roaming every room, every piece of furniture, as though willing himself to remember. But nothing came. Not the dining room where we'd once argued over takeout, not the balcony where we'd sat in silence after too many late nights, not even the bedroom where, well, better left unsaid. He stared at it all as if it were a stranger's home. After walking him through every floor, only the basement storeroom remained. "There's a lock on this one," Ethan said, pausing in front of the door. "You never let me go inside." His eyes lingered on the keypad, as though the numbers themselves might hold the key to his past. A sharp irritation pricked at my chest. I already knew what was behind that door. The housekeeper, Mrs. Wang, had once mentioned it. Ethan's so-called treasure chest, a room filled with relics of his first love. Every time he went inside, he'd come out with that rare expression, his face softened, almost glowing, like winter sunlight breaking through frost. I didn't know who that Omega was. Some pampered darling, no doubt. But one thing was clear. Whoever they were, they must have looked like me. Otherwise, Ethan Price would never have married an alpha like me. The password-protected door never got opened. Word must have spread fast, because by the weekend, Xavier Young showed up, dragging along a whole gang of their old high school buddies to visit Ethan. They were all people Ethan used to be close with. But now, he didn't remember a single one of them. And of course, none of them had the faintest clue about the real relationship between Ethan and me. When they finally put the pieces together, their jaws nearly hit the floor. Hold on, one of them stammered, pointing at me. You're telling us that the wife Ethan's been hiding all this time is his most hated rival from high school? Another leaned closer to Ethan, whispering loudly. Ethan, if he's blackmailing you, blink twice. We'll bust you out. Are you stupid? Someone else cackled. Look at him. Since when does a guy get beaten up by his nemesis and then smile like some lovesick fool? Oh, wait. Don't tell me you're still the same creep who used to steal his underwear. The laughter choked off when my coffee tray hit the floor with a loud clatter. Silence. In the next instant, I marched across the room, grabbed Ethan by the collar while he was still sitting in his wheelchair, and all but roared in his face. So it really was you back in high school? You're the bastard who kept stealing my underwear, my toothbrush, my cup, making me buy replacements every damn week? Ethan's eyes darted everywhere but mine, sweat beading at his temple. His memory might have been stuck at 16, but guilt was written all over his face. Why are you getting so worked up? He stammered. Anyway, you're my spouse now, aren't you? What's yours is mine. What's mine is... Ow! My palm connected with his cheek before he could finish. A nice, bright red mark bloomed instantly across his skin. I curled my fist, forced a polite smile toward our stunned guests, and said smoothly, Sorry, family matter. Maybe you all should visit another time? They nodded so fast their heads nearly rattled off, scattering out of the house quicker than startled rabbits. The moment the door shut behind them, I turned back around, smiling just enough to show teeth. Predator's smile. Hunt time. Ethan Price's face was flushed, his neck strained red from my torment. Strapped tightly to the wheelchair, a rag stuffed between his lips, he shook his head desperately, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. I leaned closer, offering him a smile that was far too gentle for the cruelty behind it. Oh? You don't want me to stop, is that it? My foot pressed down harder. A muffled groan escaped his throat, his body folding forward instinctively under the pressure. I clicked my tongue, feigning pity. Husband, didn't you say your leg was useless? Funny, because right now it feels very much alive to me. For just a moment, his gaze went hazy, his entire body trembling as though betrayed by itself. When our eyes met, his were feverish, dark, hoarse with a fire he couldn't hide. I let my lips curve into a slow, deliberate smirk. He might be 26 now, putting on that cold, untouchable mask, but I knew better. At 16, I could read him like the back of my hand. He'd never been able to hide from me. After playing with him long enough, I finally loosened the restraints and pushed his wheelchair forward, right up to the heavy iron door of that hidden room. My tone turned sharp, all traces of amusement gone. Open it, now. Once I believed a canary should never cross the lines with its keeper, that there should always be distance, restraint. But that was before. Now I only want the truth. Because for 10 whole years, Ethan Price has kept something from me. And tonight, I'll uncover every last secret he's been hiding. Ethan looked utterly defeated, his face still carrying the shadows of my earlier punishment. Lips pushed into a pout. He muttered, I don't remember the code. But when he tried, the door clicked open. 8:26. Not his birthday. Not mine. Not even our wedding date. I turned my gaze sharply on him. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes, refusing to explain. Fine. I pushed his wheelchair into the hidden room. Darkness swallowed us whole. Thick, secretive, like something that shouldn't see the light of day. Only a small desk lamp sat in the corner. I switched it on, and froze. The room was full, piles of personal belongings, newspaper clippings, school articles, shadows of the past pressed into every shelf and box. All of it, every single thing, was mine. A chill ran down my spine. I reached into one box and pulled something out, an old pair of underwear. Holding it up to his face, my voice sharpened. Why the hell would you steal something like this? I couldn't understand it. Truly, I couldn't. What kind of twisted mind thought this way? Ethan's head dropped. His hands fidgeted, his eyes glued to the floor, too ashamed or too stubborn to answer, just like with the code. Silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Fine, don't say it. I've already figured it out. That made him twitch, his eyes flickering with the faintest trace of hope. I leaned closer, voice low and cutting. You didn't steal anything valuable. No, what you took were private things. Because you wanted to defile them. To feel like you'd gotten back at me for always beating you. To humiliate me in secret, curse me behind my back. Just like when you broke your damn leg and still insisted on marrying me, just to make sure you could keep shaming me day and night, even without your memories. I arched a brow, satisfied with my own deduction. Ethan Price, tell me I'm wrong. Honestly, I almost admired myself. Years since I'd touched a math problem, and still my logic was flawless. But instead of denying me, Ethan's lips parted. His voice broke. He cried. For the first time in all the years I'd known him, Ethan shoved me away. His eyes burned with fury as he shouted through his tears. Yes, I hate you, Julian Reed. I've always hated you. That's why I did it, to disgust you, to get back at you. Are you happy now? His voice cracked. You cold, heartless bastard. I will never forgive you. I blinked, stunned. What? That day, Ethan Price wheeled himself out of the secret room looking utterly disheveled. He wasn't speaking to me. No more sudden kisses to disgust me. No more pressing close and smearing me with his scent. I guessed it was because I'd hit too close to the truth, exposed the twisted thoughts he'd been hiding. That must have been why he snapped. I told myself I didn't need to pamper him. But the problem was, Ethan was my sponsor. So even if he was sulking, I still had to help him change clothes, still had to bathe him. His face stayed cold, as if he'd aged 10 years overnight. That mood lingered for 3 days, and then, on the third morning, there was a knock at the villa door. An Omega stood there, bright and cheerful, saying he'd come to visit the patient. When I opened the door and came face to face with him, I froze, because it was like looking into a mirror. He raised his brows and curled his lips into a smile. Hello, you must be Ethan's good friend, right? I'm his ex-boyfriend. Mind letting me in to see him? The Omega's smile was sweet, just like his scent. But his words struck me like a hammer to the head. An ex-boyfriend? When did that happen? High school? College? The year after graduation? Or sometime in these past 3 years? The Omega frowned slightly, his brows tightening in polite restraint. Mr. Price, with all due respect, alphas and omegas are different. I don't think we're familiar enough for you to be asking me that kind of question. I gave a dry little smile. He was right. Other than a fake marriage certificate, what right did I really have to pry into his past? So I stepped aside and told him, Ethan's upstairs, 2nd floor. Then I let him pass, without another word. Ethan's leg was still recovering, so he couldn't come down himself. But not long after, my phone lit up with his name. The moment I answered, his voice was sharp, demanding. What's going on? My stomach turned, nausea rising without warning. I let out a laugh, but there was no humor in it. You're asking me what's going on? Isn't that your ex-boyfriend? On the other end of the line, Ethan went silent. I could picture him, lips parting as if to say something, but no words came. In the end, he said nothing at all. The line clicked, and the call was cut off. I was downstairs, absent-mindedly preparing breakfast. My mind kept drifting back to those old-school newspaper clippings. The boy in those faded photos, was that really me? Looking at them now, it wouldn't be wrong to say it was that Omega from earlier instead. The resemblance between us, the eyes, the features, it was uncanny. But at this point, there was no way to know for sure. Upstairs, Ethan and that Omega had been talking for what felt like forever, an hour and a half, from 8:30 to 10. To me, it dragged on like a century. I sat in front of the television, my thoughts restless, even rehearsing the moment Ethan would ask me for a divorce. I imagined what came after. If it really came to that, I'd resign from my job, raise my child alone. The money Ethan had given me over the years, Combined with what I'd earned from my scripts, was more than enough to support us for the rest of our lives. We'd never have to worry about food or clothing. With or without Ethan, I would give my child all the love, all the warmth, all the security in the world. We didn't need him. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But even if I didn't need him, my heart still twisted painfully, as if carved apart by invisible blades. The sudden, sharp ache struck without warning, like a heavy weight slamming into my chest, stealing my breath away. I forced myself to stand, desperate for air, thinking maybe a walk outside would clear my head. But just as I reached the door, a loud crash exploded upstairs. Furniture clattering, a violent commotion. And then Ethan staggered out of the bedroom, crawling, his face wet with tears. I couldn't bring myself to just watch him collapse. So I scooped Ethan up into my arms, holding him across my chest, and asked coldly, "Well, what happened? Did you have a fight with your so-called ex?" But instead of answering, he curled against me like a wounded bird, his fists weakly pounding at my chest as he sobbed, "He's not my ex at all, Julian. He's nothing but a delusional leech, some Omega desperate to latch onto a rich man. He's crazy for money, and you actually let him into the house? You let him frame me, slander me. You just want an excuse to divorce me, don't you?" I froze, stunned by the accusation. His tears didn't look faked. They burned hot against my shirt, soaking through. Confused, I grabbed my phone and called Xavier. "Do you know who that Omega is?" I asked. Xavier remembered immediately. "Oh, him? He used to work at Ethan's company. Ethan only gave him the job because the guy kind of looked like you. Nobody expected him to be so twisted. He even tried stealing private belongings once." I hung up, jaw tight, and ordered the bodyguards to throw the Omega out. But a flicker of guilt tugged at me. Ethan clung to me, trembling, his face wet with tears. "Julian, how could you doubt me like that? How could you even think I had an affair, or a past lover?" His voice cracked. "I've loved you since high school. Since." "Wait," I cut him off, frowning. "Why are you so hot?" It wasn't just his forehead. His whole body was burning up. "Didn't your last susceptibility period just end?" I asked, worried. "This is your fault," he choked out, tightening his arms around my neck. His breath came hot against my skin, maddeningly ticklish. "You let that Omega in here." He released his pheromones on purpose, trying to force himself on me. And now I can't stop feeling it. Danger prickled down my spine. My alpha instincts flared violently, and I shoved him back, covering my own glands with a trembling hand. "Don't! Stop it!" We had been close, intimately close. But biting glands? Marking? That had always been a line we never crossed. But Ethan wasn't listening. His eyes were glassy, his voice hoarse, desperate. His thumb pressed insistently against the sensitive spot on my neck as he whispered, "Just one bite, please. Just once. I'm begging you." "I'm not an Omega," I snapped. "Biting me won't do anything." But Ethan's tears fell again, glittering under his lashes like he'd been born to play the tragic lead in a drama. "Julian, you let him in. You let him touch me with his scent. And now I'm hurting so much. Please, make it stop." His voice broke into a pitiful sob. Please." "Enough," I barked, clenching my jaw. But in the end, I couldn't fight him off. He sank his teeth into my gland, sharp, desperate, leaving behind nothing but a shallow wound. The information pheromones he tried to push in were useless, dissolving on contact, because no matter how many times he tried, alpha and alpha would never bond. It was hopeless. Always hopeless. 2 weeks flew by in a blink, and my leave came to an end. That morning, my agent called, reminding me I had to return to the set. I swallowed some medicine to ease the pregnancy nausea, then left Ethan in the care of a professional nurse. After covering the fresh marks on my skin, I put on a cap and mask before heading back to work. The director greeted me with a frown. "There's a kiss scene we need to reshoot. Last time, the angle was too far off. On the big screen, it looks completely fake." I checked the playback myself and had to agree. Our almost kiss was so misaligned it looked ridiculous. But I remembered why it had gone wrong. That day, Ethan had visited the set as the main investor. He'd sat with a stormy expression, eyes locked on the monitors like a hawk. The director, sweating bullets under Ethan's stare, had panicked. Before my co-star and I could even lean in properly, he'd shouted, "Cut!" too soon. Ethan never said I wasn't allowed to film kiss scenes. But when we got home, he locked me inside our bedroom for 3 whole days and nights. 3 days of crying, cursing, begging, and through it all, he never spoke a single word. Just kept that cold face, burying himself in me again and again, like punishing me in silence. An alpha's possessiveness. It was terrifying. Even now, just remembering it made my legs weak. Thankfully, this time Ethan was still injured. He couldn't come. The crew quickly reset the scene, and my partner arrived not long after. Shen Li was a beta. He couldn't smell the chaotic mess of pheromones clinging faintly to me, but as he leaned in close, his lips nearly brushing mine, he whispered, "Bro, your lips split." My back stiffened against the headboard. Damn it! Of course, it's Ethan, gnawing at me last night until he left marks. The director was still adjusting the camera angles, so I couldn't move or explain. I pressed my lips together, forcing myself to endure until the shot was finally ready to roll. But the second I lifted my gaze, I froze. Across the sea of crew members, there he was. Ethan. Sitting in his wheelchair, his eyes locked on me, sharp as knives. My stomach dropped. I wanted to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen him, but before everyone, tears burst from his eyes, falling in heavy beads, one after another, as if the sight of me was breaking him apart. Good news, 16-year-old Ethan Price is simple-minded and only knows how to cry. Looks like he won't be thrown into detention after all. Bad news, he got gossiped to death. Because Ethan and I, we're secretly married. Aside from our manager, no one at the scene knows about our relationship. But the moment Ethan burst into tears in public, whispers spread like wildfire. Why is President Price crying like that? No way, no way. Don't tell me the rising star Shen Li actually climbed into bed with him to secure his spot. Think about it. One's an alpha, the other a beta. One's an award-winning actor, the other a fresh top celebrity. Who else could have made President Price cry like that? Just look at him. Completely heartbroken. That's it for Julian Reed. He kissed President Price's precious canary today. What's stopping him from being blacklisted tomorrow? I listened until my vision went dark. Then darker. How on earth did things turn into this? After wrapping up the scene, I wanted nothing more than to toss that crybaby Ethan back home where he belonged. But just as I was about to leave, the director yanked me back and insisted I attend a drinking party. Julian, you've already taken half a month off. You don't want to pay breach of contract fees, do you? It was obvious. He believed the rumors too, which explained why he let Shen Li go free so easily. But Shen Li wasn't done. He claimed he had nothing better to do and tagged along with me. On the way to the dinner, I sent a quick text to the caregiver, asking him to take Ethan home first. No reply. I kept glancing at my phone, distracted, as I stepped into the private room, and then I realized this wasn't some harmless investor banquet. It was an ambush. Seated right in the center, like he owned the place, was none other than my very first boss, Chi, the parasite Ethan had crushed and driven out of the industry years ago. Well, long time no see, Julian, he drawled, his voice slick with venom. I heard your sugar daddy got into a little accident. Tell me, without him, who's going to protect you now? I've waited a long time for this day. I didn't even know what gutter he'd crawled out of. His intel was laughably outdated. Rolling my eyes, I turned on my heel to leave. But the director, clearly bought and paid for, blocked my way. Julian, it's just a couple drinks. Don't make it a big deal, huh? Show some respect. A couple of drinks? Not for me. Not now. Not ever. Find someone else. I'm not drinking. The words had barely left my mouth when Chi shot to his feet and hurled a glass to the floor at my feet. Shards scattered like shrapnel. 3 bottles of Baiju, he snarled. I don't care if I have to pour it down your throat. You're drinking every drop tonight. 3 bottles? Shen Li, who'd come along, gawked. That'll kill him. What the hell are you people trying to pull? Chi sneered, looking every bit like he'd just broken out of prison. So what if it kills him? Julian Reed dared cross me. He should have known this day would come. Your sponsor's a cripple now. Nobody's going to protect you. Be smart and obey. My thumb hovered over my phone, seconds away from hitting call on 911, and then, who the hell said I'm a cripple? I froze. Turning back, I saw him, Ethan Price, standing tall in a perfectly tailored suit, not a trace of weakness in his posture. His gaze cut through the room like a blade, and then his eyes softened just for me. He inclined his head, voice steady, calm, possessive. Baby, come here. My blood ran cold. Ethan Price, 16-year-old Ethan, would never call me that. Only the 26-year-old Ethan, sharp, domineering, and ruthlessly possessive, would ever call me baby in that tone when he was angry. Baby, are you cold? In the car, he caught my hand, his eyes cool and sharp. You're trembling. You expect me to believe you're not cold? I didn't dare answer. Back there, when he dealt with Shi-Chi and his lackeys, he had also made sure Shen Li was taken care of as well. His silent punishment. Obviously, he was still fuming about today's kiss scene. I swallowed hard, desperate to change the subject. How did you suddenly get your memory back and your legs? When did they heal? His lips curled, a sound that was almost a laugh, but not quite. From your tone, it sounds like you'd rather I stayed broken. His gaze sharpened, cutting straight through me. But you can thank yourself for this, Julian. Watching you film that scene was more than enough stimulation. As for my legs, Ethan gave a quiet scoff. They've been fine for a long time. He only kept up the act to win your sympathy. You really couldn't tell. My mind went blank. His words hit like a bolt of lightning, frying me inside and out. What do you mean, he? My voice shook. Ethan, you've been sick. You lost your memory. Don't tell me you're jealous of yourself now? The car rolled to a smooth stop in the courtyard. Ethan didn't answer. His face was stone as he tugged me out of the car. Come on. We'll discuss this inside. The memory of the last time I'd been locked in with him crashed over me. The crying, the pleading, the silence. My body flinched hard, panic clawing at my chest. No, I snapped, wrenching free of his grip. If you've got something to say, we'll say it here. Right now. He paused, then gave a low, humorless laugh. Fine. Ethan turned to the driver. His voice dropped to a cutting chill. Get out, and don't let anyone else come near. My stomach dropped. Damn it. I was in trouble. As soon as the driver left, the courtyard fell into a silence so sharp I could hear my own heartbeat pounding. Baby, Ethan's voice was low, dangerous. While I was gone, you seemed to have a good time with him, didn't you? You enjoyed yourself. Thoroughly. His hand slid up with pinpoint accuracy, covering the back of my neck, right where my gland throbbed. His teeth clenched with fury. This spot, I've never touched it, not once. But you let him mark you here. Baby, you... I cut him off the only way I could. I pressed my mouth to his. He had called me baby more times tonight than he had in 3 years. I knew, if I didn't take control now, I was finished. So I straddled him. Ethan really did get distracted by me. His big hands tightened around my waist, kissing me like he was completely lost in it. Following my movements, he kept going, not letting me catch a break. I thought that was it, that the matter was over. But halfway through, Ethan suddenly pressed a hand against my lower belly, his eyes darkening as he asked, his tone dripping with jealousy. Baby, has he been here before? That childish act of his, did it really satisfy you? Julian Reed, answer me. I was already about to collapse from exhaustion. How was I supposed to say anything? In the end, Ethan, still not satisfied, let out a frustrated growl, dropped 2 sharp little pearls from his glands, and pressed them against my lips. He bit your gland, marked you, but you never marked him. So now if you mark me, it'll be your one and only first time. What kind of twisted logic is that? That night, in the heat of the moment, I almost blurted out about the baby. But the second Ethan heard the word baby, his brows furrowed tightly. Why bring up something like that? It's just trouble. I hate kids the most. From 1 to 16, all they do is cause problems. Nothing but a burden. I instinctively covered my stomach. The words that had reached my lips, I swallowed them back down immediately. The next day, Mr. Price came over to hand over some business affairs. He and Ethan stayed in the study for a long while. Then, out of nowhere, he called for me, saying he wanted to speak with me alone. Ethan's face went pale, as if facing a great enemy, and he immediately tried to block me from going in, nearly earning himself another beating from his father. In the end, I pulled Ethan aside myself and followed Mr. Price into the study. Ethan's father laid a thick stack of documents in front of me. His expression was heavy as he explained, "These are the records I found while overseeing the company these past few weeks. That reckless boy Ethan has been secretly wiring huge amounts of money to cover the holes your father dug over the last 6 months. Your father's so-called new company is nothing but a bottomless pit. Every few days he comes to Ethan asking for more money, more investment. Did you know about this?" I shook my head. Flipping through the papers, my hands trembled. These were massive transfers, money Ethan never once mentioned to me, and my father had taken it all without a word. All this time, I'd thought Ethan's talk about supporting my father's company was nothing more than an empty promise, words to comfort me. Ethan's father sighed and patted my shoulder firmly. "Since he didn't tell you, asking him now won't get you anywhere. Julian, we never truly disliked you. What we couldn't stomach was watching someone treat Ethan like a fool to be bled dry. Do you understand? I tucked the papers away, forcing myself to stay calm. I understand, sir. I'm sorry. Since this began because of me, it was only right that I end it myself. The next day, while Ethan was away on a business trip, I flew overseas and went straight to that so-called company. It wasn't a company at all. It was a casino, plain and simple. And only Ethan would have been foolish enough to believe in it and keep sending money. It had been years since I'd last seen my father, James Reed. Back then, he'd destroyed our family by gambling everything away, bankrupting us, and driving my mother to leave. I thought the lesson had been enough. I thought he'd changed. When he saw me, he grinned without the slightest shame. Well, did my good son-in-law finally send you with money? How much did you bring? I slammed the stack of account records right into his face. All these years, taking this much money. Are you insane? He's my partner, not some endless ATM. You only just found out? My father raised his brows, then suddenly laughed. Looks like pushing you onto that fool's bed all those years ago wasn't a mistake after all. I froze. It was you? You were the one who forced me into that situation back then? Who else? He sneered. You think you'd have this kind of life now without me? You should be thanking me. If it weren't for that gullible idiot. He's not an idiot, and from now on I won't let you touch another cent from him. I tossed a bank card and a contract onto the table. $7 million. Take it. From this moment on, we're finished. Father or not, our ties are severed. Expose me to the media. Ruin my career if you want. I don't care. You'll never see another coin from me again. I thought that would be the end of it. But James had long since gone mad from gambling. He ripped up the contract and, in his desperation, kidnapped me. You think $7 million is enough to get rid of me? Dream on. He hadn't even finished making the call to extort Ethan when Ethan's name flashed across my phone. He was already calling, frantic. He should have still been abroad on his trip. Instead, he had already landed here, in France. Before I could even ask why, my father dragged me to the edge of a cliff by the sea and summoned Ethan there as well. Ethan never expected it. He never imagined James would press a knife to my throat and demand money. For once, the man who was always calm and composed looked on the verge of tears. But I couldn't let myself drag him down any further. I lifted my head, steady, and said, Ethan, let's divorce. The divorce papers are already signed. They're in the top drawer by the bed. Ethan froze. Then his face twisted with rage, and he shouted at me, Do you really want our child to be born without a father? I went rigid, stunned. How do you? No. Xavier told me. Ethan pulled a crumpled ultrasound sheet from his jacket pocket, the very one I had thrown away in the trash. He picked it up, and the moment he found out I had regained my memory, he handed it to me. His voice broke, raw with pain. Julian Reed, did you ever truly love me at all? The sea wind howled at the edge of the cliff. My eyes burned, and I lowered my head. No. But the truth was, by the time I realized I loved him, by the time I truly understood how deeply he loved me, I also realized how much I owed him. I didn't want him to be burdened with a child he never wanted. I didn't want to become his weight, his chain. So I thought about leaving, just for a while. A chance to start over. After all, this marriage had never been fair from the very beginning. I had only spoken a single word, yet Ethan stood frozen across from me for the longest time, as if he had already read every thought in my heart. He didn't press further. Instead, he gave James the answer he wanted to hear, then pulled me into his arms. Not long after, he had James dragged off to the police station, still cursing and kicking. If he's a father you want nothing to do with, Ethan said hoarsely, holding me tight, then I'll never show him another ounce of mercy. His arms locked around me, his voice shaking in a way I'd never heard before. You know me, Julian. I've always had double standards with you. I hate arrogant alpha rivals, but I love you. I hated children, because I thought you were an alpha too, that you couldn't have any. I never believed in love growing with time. And yet, for 3 years, I prayed that in the days we spent together you would come to love me back, even just a little. You know this, Julian. I love you. When we finally went home that night, the divorce papers were fed into the shredder, torn to pieces. Ethan even dug out the old sponsorship contract from the bottom of a box and ripped it up with a look of relief. Then, grinning like a fool, he pulled out another document, a brand new stay-at-home husband agreement. He puffed out his chest and explained, You said the first 3 years weren't fair, so I drafted this instead. For the next 3 years, You'll be the wealthy patron, and I'll be the kept husband. I smacked him on the arm with a scowl. What is this nonsense? If you want to role-play, just say so. Then he leaned close, mischief glinting in his eyes. Tell me you love me. Once a day. You love me. Once a day, I shot back, mocking him. He grinned wider. No, you say it. I love you. I rolled my eyes, but my lips betrayed me. I love you. His smile softened, his voice low and warm. I love you too. The end.